Hey, what's up? I'm Baha here, and if you have enjoyed my previous video about 8 different reasons why I love the Canon EOS 90D and why I would definitely consider this as my top priority of mid-range DSLRs in 2021, well then, you're in for a surprise today, because today we'll be talking about 7 more reasons why I actually think that the Canon EOS 90D is a really good choice for anyone looking for a mid-range price DSLR. We'll get into this right after the introduction. What is going on, guys? If this is your first time watching me, my name is Baha and I make all sorts of videos which include anything that talks about cars, high-end technology, or traveling, or basically just normal vlogging. And today we have a really interesting topic to talk about. Today we'll be talking about 7 more reasons, a follow-up of the previous video, of why I think that the Canon EOS 90D is a really good camera to consider buying for a mid-range DSLR here in 2021. Regardless of the fact that this camera was actually released on August 26th of 2019, this camera still has a lot to offer. You should definitely consider buying it if you are in the market right now for a budget camera below $1,500 US, and the Canon EOS 90D is definitely something to be considered. So without further ado, let's get into this video. The first thing that I want to talk about is the filters that this camera comes with. This camera comes with a lot of incredibly creative and dedicated filters. So let's say if you like to play around or mess around, then you have the creative filters. Some of these filters can be the water paint effect, or maybe even the toy camera effect, or maybe even the, the moisture effect, or there are even 4 different HDR effects if you want to basically play with this camera, and I will be displaying a few images here and there on top of this video. So yeah, as I was saying, there are a lot of creative effects that you could definitely consider playing around with, and there will be as well a lot of fun stuff that you could do when you're still exploring your new camera. Apart from that, there are also some seriously dedicated filters for specific reasons. So let's say, for example, if you're in a sports event where you have to shoot really fast moving options, then there is a sports filter. And then let's say if you are catching fast objects, so there is the panning filter for that. Let's say if you are messing around with kids, then there is probably a kids filter for that. Let's say you're taking night photography, portraits of people, then there's a night portrait. Daytime portrait, there's a filter for that. Landscape portrait, there's a filter for that. There's basically a lot of filters for very different uses, and I definitely would consider that you play around with these filters if you're buying this camera. Not sure about other cameras, but this one definitely has it, so do consider that when you're buying this camera. The next reason is the fact that this camera has a mechanical shutter speed of 10 to 11 frames per second when you're actually shooting incredibly fast objects. Again, let's go back to the whole sports scenario. So let's say you're at a sports event and maybe you're shooting, I don't know, maybe fast running horses that really just pass by incredibly quickly in front of your camera, or maybe NASCAR cars or Formula 1 cars. You will definitely need the 10 to 11 frames per second shuttering speed, because you want to take a lot of pictures simultaneously at the same time. And let's just say that one picture at a time might not be perfect, so you will want to take a few pictures to be able to filter them out and in consequence be able to choose the best. For DSLR cameras in this price range, majority of them are like 7 or 8 frames per second of continuous mechanical shutter, but this one actually comes with 11 frames per second. For a DSLR, I think that this is a steal, especially at the price tag that we're talking about of below $1,500 US. The third point that I want to talk about is the dual pixel autofocus. Now I will mention later on that this camera actually only has 45 autofocus points, which is a really bad number of autofocus points for considering the mirrorless and all of the brand new cameras. But for old cameras and for stuff that has been developed before, then I think 45 autofocus points still good, especially with Canon's dual pixel autofocus. Whatever you press in, no matter how close or far, this camera will definitely be able to grasp it, and I think that this is such a really big selling point for this camera. Definitely do consider it, especially if you're considering the autofocus as one of your priorities, then I think that this camera will be really good for you. Now, the fourth point that we want to talk about is the wireless connectivity. So I'm not sure about previous Canon 80D and 70D cameras, to be exact. I'm not sure if they had no cables or not, but this 90D does not come with a cable, mainly because it has the wireless functionality. So if you want to transfer stuff to your computer or to your phone, for the phone, I'm an Android user, so I only know about Android. I'm not sure about iOS yet, but I will definitely check that out. But for Android, there is the Canon Connect application. You have to download it and install it on your phone, and after that, the camera will definitely be able to grasp the fact that you have connected it and you're on the same Wi-Fi network as your phone, and then it will be able to transfer the stuff wirelessly to your phone, whatever you choose, whatever you want on the application to be transferred to your phone. On the laptop, it's the same thing, except that it's not called Canon Connect. You will have to go to Canon's website and download the EOS utility, and using that along with your camera on the same Wi-Fi or Bluetooth network as well, then you will be able to transfer everything onto your computer. The fifth point that we want to talk about is the beginner friendliness. Like I've said before, this camera has really good ergonomics, so if you have a professional to help you out and they're used to specific ergonomics, they will definitely love this camera. But if you're anything like me who is still brand new to cameras, then I think that the ergonomics on this camera will be a really good fit. But even if you don't want to learn all of the ergonomics, handling and grip and everything, then I think that the touch screen, which is a 3-inch LCD that I'm using right now as well as I record this video, will be perfectly fine for you. The 3-inch LCD screen pretty much has everything that the ergonomics has, except that it's a whole lot more convenient and it's up to date to times such as 2019, 2020 and even 2021 as we speak. Definitely a good choice, especially if you are worried about the functionality of the camera. The sixth point that we want to discuss is actually the weather sealing on this camera. Now, whether you know it or not, some cameras, they do not have the best weather sealing, but for this one, it does not have a weather sealing around the entire camera, but they definitely got the weather sealing right on the points where it truly matters. So wherever the electronics are, wherever it is prone to damage from water or maybe even dust, these areas have been weather sealed by Canon themselves, and personally for me, I think that this is a really good idea to consider when designing your cameras. The seventh point that I want to talk about, and this is where Canon really shines against Sony or other companies like Fujifilm or whatsoever, is the color grading on this camera. Straight up out of the camera, the skin looks really crisp, the environment looks clean, and everything looks perfectly well, and that's where Canon really excels. Might not be incredibly good at night light, that's where Sony is really good, and that's where majority of my photography goes on. But when it comes to color grading and skin toning, you realize that the Canon camera actually does incredibly well, especially compared to competition at the same price point of these cameras. So if color, skin and toning are top priority for you, you will definitely love this camera. And then there's a bonus point, is the fact that this camera has a time-lapse mode. I'm sure that all of the other cameras have a time-lapse mode, but personally for me, I have had so much fun playing with the time-lapse mode and coming up with time-lapses of sunrise and sunset. Okay, sunrise I had a lot of problems because I am not really I wasn't able to adjust the settings accordingly, but still with the sunset, I think that the time-lapse mode on this camera was really good for me, and I have truly enjoyed playing around with it. And that's about it for this short video. Thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you have enjoyed it, and if you did, please make sure to hit the like and subscribe and comment down below what you want to see me do next. And also make sure to follow me on Instagram and Twitter. And before I end this video, I want to let you guys know that as I record this video, we are at 991 subscribers, which is a very, very big deal to me. So thank you so much for subscribing and being there with me since the beginning. And although I know that majority of you guys have come from the car video, but I would really appreciate if you check out my other content as well. Without further ado, thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video. Peace out.